Glad tidings, rapscallions. It's me, Mucky Mitts. Hope you are well. Hope you are feeling fantabulous and fine and dandy and all that stuff. So today is day 15 of episode 15 of It's Okay to Suck and Start Again, which is our raw, unedited content where I don't do any editing. I don't, if I say something that I don't really want to be in, because my ethos is, look, you can't edit life, can you? Life is not editable. But what we can do is work on improving ourselves and whatnot. And hence, it's okay to suck and start again. You will make mistakes. You will fail. Failure is part of the process of learning. And you only fail if you give up. So basically, like I say, I have left it a little bit late in the day to make this video. But on the same side of the coin, I am a stickler for still posting on exactly the same day, keeping it consistent. And in fairness, not many people watch these videos anyway. And who knows, I might post this at this time and it might end up getting more views than I've ever got before. So anyway, so I'm building on something that I have been doing for a few weeks now. For the last 6 weeks, well, 5 and a bit weeks, I have been reading a book a week. And on that book a week, I have been looking to sort of learn some lessons. And I think what I'm going to do moving forward, and I do need to go back through some of the books now. This is the stack of books that I've read in the last 5 weeks. So I started off with The Psychology of Money, and then The Power of Habit, then The Chimp Paradox, then Atomic Habits, and recently I read Hyperfocus. Now, and then I am on this book called Deep Work, which is very much like Hyperfocus, but at the same time, so they are starting to merge into, as self-help books steeped in psychology and, social sciences do tend to be, they do all tend to sort of echo each other and things like that. But that's probably not so bad, because at the end of the day, sometimes it takes 3 separate occasions for information to go in before your brain processes it and then keeps it in. But it's good, because if I keep doing this, I go back to uni in October. I've got my final year, and what I will say about deep work, I was going to call it deep focus because obviously I'm tired and these titles are starting to merge into one. So deep work is just about, talks about some of the great thinkers, like Einstein and, some authors and stuff like that who've basically just shut themselves off from the world to get things done. And it talks a lot about knowledge work. Now, I wasn't very familiar with the idea, the term knowledge work. Now, being a barber and somebody who is a hair professional, I don't tend to work with emails very much. Now, I did a little bit whilst I was trying to be a youth worker. I was starting to, obviously, I was starting to sort of like have to deal with emails, and I found it and meetings and stuff like that. Now, in barbering, meetings and answering emails and things like that, we've even got to a point now where we don't answer phone calls. We have booking apps, and even if somebody comes in to book an appointment, we refer them to the app, because for me to stand and talk and basically book somebody in, it eats into my time as a barber and it eats into the time with that customer. So although that seems a little bit rude, it's also at the same time I can carry on cutting while I'm talking to somebody and telling them to go and use the app. Now, look, I understand not everybody wants to use apps and stuff like that, but for us as people where time is money, in the UK, the majority of people who cut hair, or at least in barbering, are self-employed. So time is money. We aren't getting paid to answer emails and things like that, because if our hands aren't moving, if my scissors aren't moving or my clippers aren't switched on, it means I'm not turning over money and I'm not making any profit. And each moment that I am stood doing nothing eats into my time. But it's very interesting to see how it actually eats into the corporate world's time as well. And there are a few researchers. So what I'm going to do, because I know that there will be people out there that maybe who do work in an office, maybe hate working in an office, and maybe this is where you're trying to find some avenues to get out of it. Now, personally, as somebody who's tried to change their career multiple times, I've done things from you as diverse as youth work to learning how to be a stonemason. Now, each one of these, I keep coming back to the hairdressing industry because I'm pretty good at what I do. I always build up a strong customer base, and in January I made the decision to leave my youth work job to focus more on my degree when it comes back to October, after I got kicked off my course in January. And that has actually worked out really, really well, because in a weird kink of fate, I am now, like, I'm earning enough money, and now I'm renting my own apartment, which is great because I want to make content. But I don't just want to make content based on reading books. I want to be an all-seeing, all-doing, all basically taking on other things, like, you know, eating better, you know, like if you've got a diet plan, you want to lose weight, and I'm trying to use myself as a bit of a excuse me, as an example that these things can be done. Not to mention that I am also in the process of trying to move back to Australia, but like I say, I think it's very boring if I just talk about myself all the time, and then it begs the question, is like, am I really that interesting that people want to just hear about what I'm doing? Now, maybe some people will think that, maybe they won't. Now, I only had this idea yesterday, so instead of, and like I say, I'm moving house, so I'm a little bit up in the air at the moment, and I'm trying to get into a new routine. But something that Hyperfocus talks about is attention residue. Now, when we go from one task to another task, and we have still got that other task in our mind, then we leave like a residue. And the deeper, the stickier the residue, the less likely we are to be able to concentrate on our next task. And I think this is something that Chris Bailey really talks about really, really well. And something that, from my own experience, from doing, and something else, and I can't remember where I saw this, but it's called closing the loop. And basically, you know, once upon a time, I was very bad at finishing books. I would leave quite a lot of pages. With these books that I've read in the last 6 weeks, apart from the acknowledgements and the notes and stuff like that, I've read it almost cover to cover, which is something that I haven't done for a lot of time, unless it's a fiction book, you know. And I do feel like reading all these sort of like self-help and self-development and self-care books is great, but like I say, they do get repetitive. So I think I'm gonna have to chuck a fiction book in there once every now and then. So if you've got any recommendations, that would be really good. So I'm going to introduce the idea of, and I'm going to go back with a highlighter, and I'm going to go back through some of the books to find some of the most useful things in these books, and then I'm going to introduce these on a Monday in It's Okay to Suck and Start Again, because I want to be your guide, and you know, whether like Atomic Habits was a brilliant book, so much in there, and like Hyperfocus, like I say, you're not going to be able to use absolutely everything from every book you read, but sometimes there's just little things, and there's little things that you talk about, and some sort of little quotes and things like that are so heavily quotable that will stick in your brain. And I just think that's a really, really good thing, you know, as somebody who's completely, you know, I'm not going to say I'm not the finished article. I'm still, you know, and I'll probably look back in 5 years' time and laugh at myself, you know, in 5 years' time, going, I thought I was there, you know. And then 5 years from there, and 5 years from there, and then probably 5 years from there, you know, I'm going to be old. So, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, like one thing, you know, one quote that I always love, the person who enjoys the journey will travel further than the person who enjoys the destination. And like, you know, like I said, I don't really want to go on about myself too much, but I am one of those people that every time I seem to get to where I think I'm going to be happy, as in like, you know, the terms of like the amount of money I've got, or like the amount of money I'm making, or the standard of life that I've got, or whatever, I always feel quite disappointed that it's, you know, and I don't know if this is a trauma thing or whether this is something that resonates with you, because the sort of, I've always looked at it like the quest is much more fun. Do you know what I mean? It's like the actual sort of journey is just, you know, the hustle is so much more fun. And like, I think back to sort of, and I've mentioned this in previous sort of episodes of It's Okay to Suck and Start Again, because, you know, I have had times where I have really had to pick my wits and think, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent this month, and I don't know how, you know, I've got shoes that have got holes in them, or I'm not quite sure how I'm going to afford to get to work next week. But somehow, some way, I always found a way. And that was, you know, and that, I'm not going to say that I want to struggle, because I think just wanting to, like, having to struggle just for the sake of entertainment is stupid. But there's almost an element of like, I always said, you know, basically, if I could put the same amount of energy into building on a foundation, then I could possibly potentially be a millionaire, if not a multi-millionaire. Now, that still, you know, in my brain isn't, you know, isn't unachievable. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm anywhere near it at the moment, but with a little bit of, you know, when you consider where, like, being wiped out in the pandemic, and where I was even just financially last year at this point, you know, like financially, and I'm not going to talk about how much money I have and stuff like that, but like even to be sort of in this place now where financially I'm in a very, not comfortable, like where I can afford to like buy a house or anything like that, or, you know, or buy a Ferrari. But for me, who has literally spent so much time just struggling and just wondering, you know, like how to get there. But also it just gives you that ability to sort of sit back and go, well, actually, because hindsight's never wrong, is it? So basically, you know, and again, I do sort of put this, you know, sort of having more money down to two things. Well, at least one thing, you know, and giving up alcohol, because, you know, giving up alcohol meant that I had so much more productivity because I wasn't going out drinking and whatnot, which made like time, you know, it opened up more hours in the day. Not to mention my days off, you know, I'm not hungover, I'm not lying in bed. So I've got more and more, you know, productive time and ability to sort of use time more productively. Now, what I need to do next is work out how to use that time more efficiently, and also not to worry about basically monetizing it as such, because sometimes it's nice to have a rest is important as well. And I do feel, since I've moved into this apartment in the last week, apart from I've been cat sitting for the last 3 days, I've been cat sitting three cats for just over a week, and they've gone home today, and I'm a bit sad because I got used to having them around, and they've all got their own little personalities, and, you know, I'd never met them before prior to that, but like it's kind of got in my head a little bit where I'm like, maybe I could do cat sitting for, you know, if the Australia thing doesn't work out, maybe I could work a way how to like be a cat sitter, and then, you know, like get enough work, have enough in the bank, buy a camper van, and then basically if I can cat sit, I could potentially live rent free by, you know, looking after people's cats, or any animals maybe, you know, house sitting. And then, you know, if I could basically get to a point where I'm like 2/3 of the year, I'm doing that and getting paid for that, because then I've got free accommodation. I'm getting to move around. I'm getting to travel, which scratches another itch. I've been making enough money, and I will also fulfill that dream of having a camper van and, you know, touring and stuff like that. So, but the one thing that I have come to realise since I started moving house is just in the last 4 years of how much shit I have accumulated. Like, I have got so much crap in drawers. I've got so I'm going to sit down, you know, I've got, it's always best laid plans, isn't it? But I've got somebody coming round tomorrow to fit a pressure pump so that the water pressure is better in the flat. Because I love a shower. I don't know about you. I love being, I could be in a shower for ages, and that's something that, so, you know, it is well worth, it is definitely well worth sort of like waiting around tomorrow. But on the other side of the coin, it just means that I'm going to be sat waiting for somebody to do some work while I'm thinking about what I need to do in my other flat. Now, I have got a van on Monday to come and get all the stuff, which is all right because that's not coming till the evening. And then that leaves me 2 days once I've got all my stuff out of my old room to clean, like, because I don't want to leave it in an absolute mess. So everything's doable, and it's Parkinson's law as well, where a task will fill the amount of time that you've got. And that's something that I read years ago in another self-help book called The 4 Hour Work Week, but it also, I think he talks about that in Hyperfocus. Sorry, I've gone a bit of a tangent about what I want to do and stuff like that. Anyway, so what I'm thinking, and obviously, like, if I ended up being a full-time cat sitter, or, you know, house sitter or whatever, what I could also do is obviously make more content, hopefully get monetized on YouTube. You never know, these things can happen, but at the end of the day, what we are going to do, what we're going to focus on for now, is every week until I go back to uni, I'm going to read a new book. So next, I'm going to go through the books that I've already read in the last few weeks once I get settled, and I'm going to compile some very helpful tools and resources, and I'm going to even go through some of my old, like, uni textbooks and stuff like that, and compile because what's the point in doing a psychology degree if you're not going to bloody use it? Do you know what I mean? So anyhow, I've waffled on. I was only going to do a quick one for 10 minutes, but I'm trying to keep these under 20 minutes. Now, I don't have many subscribers on this, and I'm not going to beg it. I'm not going to. If you want to subscribe, if you do feel like if you've got to this point, you'll notice that I don't ask you at the very beginning, because it's quite frustrating when, please subscribe, please hit the like and subscribe, blah blah blah. So, but if you could do that, that'd be amazing, because it would be great to grow this channel. But if you can't, and you want to, then that's fine. But, you know, comments, like, shares, whatever you can do, follow, subscribe. But that's what I want to do over the next few weeks. So I'm going to try and work different books. I'm going to listen to different podcasts, and over this next, God knows how long, while I make these videos, I'm going to try and bring something of value to you, and hopefully that you can implement some of the lessons that I am learning from these books, and then sharing with you to help you have a better opportunity to make better choices equaling a better chance of better happiness, of whatever area of success that you wish to gain, whether that's in your love life, whether it's in your financial life, whether it's just in your family life. Who knows? Anyway, I've been Mucky Mitts. You've been amazing. Take care. Toodle pip. Goodbye. See you later.